Hello and welcome to the MISD Born to Invent Challenge. This is your guide to using the activities included in the resource pack and how to get the best out of them with your class. Each of your students will need their Inventors log to get started. In the Inventors log, you will find 6 different activities, followed by 3 invention drawing sheets. Activity 1. Office of Odd. The Office of Odd activity is all about having fun and going wild with your imagination. The activity contains pictures of unusual inventions that have been created by our chief inventor, Dominic Wilcox. The challenge is for your students to come up with a name and a use for each of these unfamiliar inventions. There's no wrong or right answer. Let's have a look at an example. Give it a name. Snowball making gloves. Who might use this invention? Someone living in the mountains. And what would they use it for? Making perfectly round snowballs. Don't forget, there's nothing too silly to write down here. It's all about being creative and using your imagination. Activity 2. Time Traveller. The world is constantly changing and it can be hard to keep up. The Time Traveller activity challenges your students to take themselves back in time and think about how times have changed, starting them off by thinking about how life was different 100 years ago. If needed, you can help your class out by prompting them with themes such as travel, electricity, food, play, housing, or the environment. Or just thinking through a daily routine without electricity or cars would be a good place to begin. Next up, the activity will challenge your students to take themselves back in time by writing down an activity they do every day, such as travelling to school, and then thinking about how this might have been different 100 years ago. For part 6, your students are asked to think about inventions that have changed this activity over the years. Let's use travelling to school as an example. There was the development of bicycles, roads, cars, and now electric cars. If they walked to school, they might now be able to listen to music on the way through headphones or a mobile phone. Lastly, it's time to get creative and imagine and draw what could be invented in the future to make the activity even better. For students that need an extra challenge, ask them to research more into what life was like 100 years ago, paying particular attention to inventions that have changed the way we live. They can use library books or the internet to research the history of inventing and look up topics like travel, food, play, or housing. Activity 3. Mix-up machine. For this activity, you'll need some scissors and glue. After talking to your class about all of the car makers still in Michigan today, introduce them to this activity. Ask them, what else could you make with all of these car parts? They will need to cut out the parts and stick them down to create something new. Here's an example. They can also add their own extra parts by drawing them onto another piece of paper or duplicating the parts on the sheet. You could also photocopy or print extra part sheets if you like. The invention doesn't need to be functional or practical. It could just be a funky sculpture or something silly. Remind them to give it a name, like the Bouncinator. For students who finish ahead of time, they can write down or talk to a classmate about what their new invention does. Even if it's just a sculpture, they could discuss where it would live and who would be able to visit it. Does it have any moving parts? Can you climb on it? Activity 4. Switch it. For this activity, you will need 3 different worksheets: the Switch It sheet, the character cards, and the place cards. Start by asking your class to cut out the character and the place cards neatly with their scissors. Then, with the Switch It worksheet, ask them to stick down 1 character card in the first box. They can choose a character card or select one at random by shuffling the cards and putting them face down on the table, then choosing 1 card. Do the same with the place cards in boxes 2 and 3. Here's an example of how it should look. The next step is to work through the questions underneath the cards, writing down information about the character, who they are and what their likes and dislikes are. This part is about using your imagination to create a character in your head. It could be based on a real person or totally made up. Then, move on to the place questions. The point of this exercise is to think about what needs the character would have in 2 very different places. For example, how someone in a wheelchair would navigate a sandy beach compared to a rainforest. They would have very different challenges. These challenges bring us on to invention opportunities. So let's get inventing. Challenge your students to draw an invention their character would need in each of the different places they chose. As always, it can be something useful, clever, or just plain silly. This activity can be done many times with different characters and different place card combinations. You'll just need to print out some extra Switch It sheets for your class if you want them to try it again, or they can use plain paper and just follow the format on the worksheet. Activity 5. My Problem Treasure Hunt. Send your class off on a treasure hunt around school or the classroom. Ask them if they can spot someone who needs help, or a way to make daily routines more fun. Draw out the problems or opportunities in the box on the left, and then jot down some ideas for inventions to improve the problems they found. They can try drawing the ideas too. As extra work, they could try doing the problem treasure hunt at home, or make notes on the way to or from school. Activity 6. Meet the future you. We're taking our minds into the future now. This activity will give your students the chance to imagine themselves there in the year 3000. Ask them to predict what their lives might be like. Where would they be living? What would they do for fun? And what challenges might we be facing in the world then? As a class, you could brainstorm some ideas about future scenarios. For example, what if the whole world was underwater? Or we could travel easily between planets? Or there were very few humans on the Earth? Anything is possible. Activity 7. World Map. Your students will be introduced to real-world challenges from people all over the world. They can use their map to mark down where each person is from. The map has continents marked on it, but they will have to pinpoint the countries as best they can. Start them off by asking them to mark where Michigan is on the map, and then work through the other challenges. For example, ask them to mark down where Dominic from England is located. You might want to do this exercise all together as a class, whilst also using a large printed map on the wall. Activity 8. Real-world challenges. Once you and your class have watched through all 8 of the Invention Challenge videos on the Little Inventors website, and they have selected which challenge they would like to respond to, they should begin by filling out this worksheet. Some of the questions might be quite tricky for them to answer, but the more time they spend thinking about them, the better their final invention will be. Here I've used Leo the dog as an example. Pause here and have a look at the answers to get an idea of the kind of thing they can write down. Activity 9. Mind map. The mind map activity will help your students to start to come up with some initial ideas for their invention. There's an example in their inventor's log for them to have a look at. You can talk through this together as a class before they get started on their own one. Activity 10. Invention Inspiration. This activity will help your class to document any inspiration they might come across that could be part of their final invention. This is something that lots of designers and inventors do to help them come up with great ideas. Maybe they might want to do this at home or over the course of a week so that they can jot things down as they see something that inspires them. Inspiration can come at any time: watching TV, walking in the street, reading a book, or talking to a friend. So remind them that they can come back to this page and add things in at any time. Activity 11. What's the story? Writing can help take the mind in lots of fantastical directions, as anything is possible in your imagination. This activity will also help your students by thinking through how their invention could help with their real-world challenge. Another way to frame the story is to say that the beginning is the problem, the middle is the invention, and the end is how the invention helped the character, the outcome. Activity 12. My Invention Comic. Now it's time to put that story into imagery. Ask your students to draw out their story one step at a time, like in a comic book. If they haven't seen a comic strip before, you might want to Google one to show them, or find a magazine to share with them. Here are 2 simple examples, but your students can break theirs down into more steps if they like to make their story more complex. Your class will now be ready to move on to their final invention drawing. Although it might seem like a lot of activities in this section, each step will really help them to develop their thinking so that their final invention is worthy of being selected as a winning idea. Last but not least, the invention drawing sheet. Here is the invention drawing sheet. It's the most important sheet in the inventor's log, as it's the sheet you will submit to Little Inventors to be selected as a winner. We've included 3 invention drawing sheets in each log so that your students can come up with multiple ideas. And don't forget, you can print out extras too if they have lots of ideas. Your students need to fill out the sheet with their inventions in response to the Invention Challenge videos, which you'll introduce them to in the teaching slides. They need to draw their best invention in the box using a black pen and colours. Remind them to add some labels too, so that we can understand what they've created. Fill out the information on the left, including their name, school, and a description of the invention. Here is an example from last year's Go Green challenge of a completed invention drawing sheet. We've changed some of the details for privacy. Each classroom is permitted to submit their top 5 ideas. If you're a specials teacher with 3 classrooms, you can submit 5 ideas per class. All invention submissions need to be uploaded prior to March the 20th, 2024, and it's up to you, the teacher, to do this. The selections can be a response to any of the real-life invention challenges from around the world, for example, from Dominic in England or Aniva in Samoa. But if possible, try to choose a variety of invention responses to submit as your chosen ideas. Invention drawings should be scanned rather than photographed and uploaded as either JPEG or PNG files. You can get more help on this at the end of the resource guide document. The judging panel, comprising the Little Inventors team, the MISD, and professional makers, will select the final winning ideas to be brought to life in animation or even get made into real objects. Here's our criteria recommendations for selecting your 5 submissions, but feel free to create your own criteria too. Select ideas that are the most fun, detailed, innovative, likely to really work, focused on the end user, or select a wild card. This could be an invention from a student that rarely gets picked in school, or a student that's a little shy or might need a little confidence boost. Everything you need is available to download from the MISD Born to Invent website. Just head to misd.littleinventors.org to find it. You can download individual activity sheets and upload your submissions. You will also be able to view all of the submitted inventions in our online invention gallery with individual feedback for each uploaded idea. If you have any concerns or questions, just email us at hello@littleinventors.org. We hope you and your students enjoy the resources and activities. Good luck with the challenge!